So his face turned from white to red as he continued. If someone loves a flower of which just one single blossom grows in all the millions and millions of stars, it is enough to make him happy just to look at the stars. He can say to himself, somewhere my flower is there, but if the sheep eats the flower, in one moment all his stars will be darkened. And you think that is not important? He could not say anything more. His words were choked by sobbing. The night had fallen. I had let my tools drop from my hands. Of what moment now was my hammer, my bolt on the thirst or death? On one star, one planet, my planet, the earth, there was a little prince to be comforted. I took him in my arms and rocked him and said to him, the flower that you love is not in danger. I will draw you a muzzle for your sheep. What? What? Why? What's that got to do anything connected with a flower? I will draw you a railing to put around your flower. I did not know what to say to him. I felt awkward and blundering. I did not know how I could reach him, where I could overtake him, and go on hand in hand with him once more. It is such a secret place, the land of tears. Oh yes. Soon learned to know this flower better. On the little prince's planet the flowers had always been very simple. They had only one ring of petals. They took up no room at all. They were a trouble to nobody. Once morning they would appear in the grass, and by night they would have faded peacefully away. But one day, from a seed blown from no one knew where, a new flower had come up, and the little prince had watched very closely over this small sprout, which was not like any other small sprouts on his planet. It might, you see, have been a new kind of baobab, but the shrub soon stopped growing and began to get ready to produce a flower. The little prince, who was present at the first appearance of a huge bud, felt at once that some sort of miraculous apparition must emerge from it. Something amazing would happen. Something would appear, apparition, like a mirage, like an illusion, something of reality. What is it that we should know what things are in life? But they appear, and you think, wow, this is not true. It is true. But the flower was not satisfied to complete the preparations for her beauty in the shelter of her green chamber. She chose her colours with the greatest care. She dressed herself slowly. Oh, I love this description. A flower that is only an inanimate and not conscious thing, but maybe that's not correct on the second part. Anyway, a flower cannot dress itself, but in this case it is a terms of explanation, and so far as the author's poetic license. She adjusted her petals one by one. She did not wish to go out into the world all rumpled like the field poppies. It was only in the full radiance of her beauty that she wished to appear. Oh yes, she was a coquettish creature, and her mysterious adornment lasted for days and days. Then one morning, exactly at sunrise, she suddenly showed herself, and after working with all this painstaking precision, she yawned and said, "Ah, I'm scarcely awake. I beg that you will excuse me. My petals are still all disarranged." Begin. But the little prince could not restrain his admiration. "Oh, how beautiful you are!" "Am I not?" the flower responded sweetly. "And I was born at the same moment as the sun." The little prince could guess easily enough that she was not any too modest, but how moving and exciting she was. "I think it is time for breakfast," she added an instant later. "You would have the kindness to think of my needs." And the little prince, completely abashed, went to look for a sprinkling can of fresh water, so he tended the flower. So too she began very quickly to torment him with her vanity, which was, if the truth be known, a little difficult to deal with. One day, for instance, when she was speaking of her 4 thorns, she said to the little prince, "Let the tigers come with their claws." "There are no tigers on my planet." The little prince objected. Anyway, tigers do not eat weeds." "I am not a weed," the flower replied sweetly. "Please excuse me." "I am not at all afraid of tigers," she went on, "but I have a horror of draughts." I suppose you wouldn't have a screen for me, would you? A horror of draughts, that is a bad luck for a plant, remarked the little prince, and added to himself, this flower is a very complex creature. At night I want you to put me under a glass globe. It is where cold, very cold where you live, in the place where I came from. But she interrupted herself at that point. In the place where I come from. Okay, right. She had come in the form of a seed. She could not have known anything of any other planets, worlds, sorry. Well, planets, worlds, same thing. Embarrassed over having let herself be caught on the verge of such a naive untruth, she coughed 2 or 3 times in order to put the little prince in the wrong. The screen? Oh, I was just going to look for it when you spoke to me. Then she forced her cough a little more, so that he should suffer from remorse just the same for not having gone quicker. So the little prince, in spite of all the goodwill that was inseparable from his love, had soon come to doubt her. He had taken seriously words which were without importance, and it made him very unhappy. I ought not to have listened to her, he confided to me one day. One never ought to listen to the flowers. One should simply look at them and breathe their fragrance. Mine perfumed all my planet, but I did not know how to take pleasure in all her grace. This tale of claws, which disturbed me so much, should only have filled my heart with tenderness and pity. And he continued his confidences. The fact is that I did not know how to understand anything. I ought to have judged my deeds and not my words. She cast her fragrance and her radiance over me. I ought never to have run away from her, and I ought to have guessed all the affection that lay behind her poor little stratagems. Flowers are so inconsistent, but I was too young to know how to love her. I believe that for his escape he took advantage of the migration of a flock of wild birds. On the morning of his departure he put his planet in perfect order. He carefully cleaned out his active volcanoes. He possessed 2 active volcanoes, and they were very convenient for heating his breakfast in the morning. He also had 1 volcano that was extinct, but as he said, one never knows. So he cleaned out the extinct volcano too. They are well cleaned out. Volcanoes burn slowly and steadily, without any interruptions. What did he clean them out with, I wonder? And anything that he put in there melt. Volcanic eruptions are like fires in a chimney. On our Earth we are obviously much too small to clean out our volcanoes. That is why they bring no end of trouble upon us. The little prince also pulled up with a certain sense of dejection. The last little shoots of the baobabs. He believed that he would never want to return, but on this last morning all these familiar tasks seemed very precious to him. And here's a picture showing him cleaning out his volcano. There we are. When he watered the flower for the last time, he prepared to place her under the shelter of her glass globe.